CzarThwomp here, and welcome to episode 30 of the Grey Ace Attorney 2, Resolve. Last time, Albert was brought to the witness stand as part of the opening of the trial section, for the first trial section for the third case, and we learned that he needs to touch grass, and he needs to touch grass right now, because he names his tools, he considers them part of his family, and he needs help. Look, there was no blood on the experimentation stage, even though that's where the fellow was stabbed. The only explanation for that is that the screwdriver was still in his body, stopping any having bleeding. It's common medical knowledge, my learned friend. Even on your side of the world. For God's sake, it was part of the first case of this game. Yes, but about this screwdriver. The thing is, we actually saw it at the scene ourselves, on the experimentation stage. What? It was on the floor by the wreckage of the machine, poking through the metal grill. I went to pick it up, but the detective here stopped me. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson? Now that you come to mention it, yes. Inspector, are we to understand that you permitted the defense counsel to investigate? That you contravened the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. Great, now those Poindexters are gonna come after me. Thank you, Gregson. No! Not at all! I won't do that! I'll just let him look, nothing more! I was very clear he wasn't to touch a thing! Please don't cut my pain, Lord Zieks! Please! You don't understand, her ladyship was forcing me! I had no choice! If I didn't let her and her friend investigate, she would break you my kneecaps! Yeah, and my throat just gave out on me for some reason. Yes, that's true. The screwdriver was in plain sight on the stage. But it shouldn't have been, should it? What are you getting at? If this tool had still been in the victim's body when the victim had beamed away by the machine, then it shouldn't have still been on the stage. Oh! That's right. It should have been beamed across to the Crystal Tower along with Mr. Assman. And been found still lodged in the victim's chest. Oh! Whoa! Order! How do you explain this, Inspector? I don't. It looks as though everything that the victim had on his person moved with him when he was beamed. If the screwdriver was still in his chest when the instantaneous kinesis occurred, obviously, that should have been beamed to the destination as well. You! This is a strange situation. Even though people are saying that this instantaneous kinesis is a scientific impossibility, we're still basing arguments on the assumption that it did actually take place. Alright, time to tighten the screws here. With Andrew the screwdriver. My lord, if the prosecution is unable to explain this inconsistency in its argument, we can only conclude that the testimony given in support cannot be relied upon. Lord Van Zieks is stumped. Do you have something to say, witness? Yes, I have almost drawn the perfect cat girl. My Neku Mitsu is gonna basically destroy you all. She is going to be glorious. She will have the fluffiest of ears, the prettiest of tails, and the largest bosom in the land. Yes, I knew it. It bears out. The equations hold. Mr. Naruto, don't worry. And meanwhile, Van Zieks, he's just over there, he's like, oh, at this point, this is exactly when we should be worrying, my Lord Nipponese friend. About what? Without delving into the details, there is no inconsistency. What? Even if Andrew had been lodged in Mr. Assman's chest, my trusty tool wouldn't have moved. Andrew remaining on the stage is consistent with my calculations. What? What? And you wonder why I drink at 10 in the morning, my learned Nipponese friend. Albert here is that very reason. It would seem your illusions have been shattered. Clearly we should hear the accused explanations. You know, Albert, with defendants like you, who needs prosecutors? Or should I say, this brilliant scientist's explanation? Just when I found an inconsistency in the prosecution's argument. This guy is taking the Larry Butz method of, I will dig my own grave, and cranks it up to 11. Because basically when Larry digs his own grave, it's more or less an inadvertent thing, where basically Larry just gets carried away. Larry is just getting in the heat of the moment. This guy, Albert, on the other hand, Albert is deliberate. It's like, I will ruin your whole career, Mr. Naruto. Scientists. And then Gregson walks over to Ryunosuke. Ah, yes, excuse me, Mr. Lawyer, you want to borrow my noose? Very well, the defendant will testify again. Provide us with the scientific explanation as to why the inconsistency asserted by the defense fails to hold. In the name of Apollo, I will, my lord. And then Ryunosuke. That's it. I will tell my descendants that if they ever come across an Apollo, to give them hell. And then meanwhile, Apollo, he picks up this. Hey, don't drag me into this! Witness testimony. The inconsistency explained. To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. My hypothesis states the kinesis cannot transport metal, though. Hence, the metal weapon would have stayed put. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruto isn't an inconsistency at all. Mr. Aspen was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together, my death laser! And then it just cuts over to Van Zieks, he's just glugging straight from the wine bottle. Oh, don't judge me, my learned Nipponese friend. You'd be doing the same thing too if you had to deal with Albert for several years. So, the thrust of your testimony, Professor, is that based upon his hypothesis, model objects cannot be moved by this method of instantaneous kinesis. In other words, since the screwdriver is made of metal, even if it remained lodged in the victim's chest, its subsequent discovery on the stage, despite the victim being found elsewhere, is not an inconsistency. And therefore, Professor Albert Hairbrain could still have been the killer. My great hypothesis holds, you see. We had to make the cage used to contain the subject from wood for that very reason. I was not addressing you, witness. Professor Hairbrain? Yes? Whose side are you on here? I am a wild horse, Mr. Naruto, for you see, I am what is called a Sigma male. I play for my own side, and my side just so happens to be destroying your career. I don't take sides, Mr. Naruto. No. My only interest lies in upholding my hypothesis. I'm a scientist, after all. In the loosest of senses, Albert. Is he working for us or against us? It's very hard to tell. I'm pretty sure Phoenix has that on I'm pretty sure that Phoenix has that in a note on his, on basically his Rolodex next to Larry's address. Let's see how you cross-examine this testimony, my Nipponese friend. You are not learned. Yes, fire away, Mr. Naruto. Okay, let's cross-examine. Gathering data. And yet you retort my argument, your retort to my argument wasn't lacking in confidence in any way. No scientist can find the truth without first finding self-belief. Those were the words of a certain scientist I hold in the very highest of esteems. But you realize that disproving my argument puts you in a very precarious position, don't you? No scientist should strive to protect himself more than he strives to protect the truth. More words of the great science, you know. Words that are causing me a lot of trouble. Who is this scientist? I'm afraid I couldn't tell you, Mr. Naruto. But as soon as I remember the magnificent genius's name, you'll be the first to know. It might be worth keeping the names of your idols to mind. You're wasting your breath, my learned friend. If you were to try to delve into Albert's reasoning at every juncture, you would go mad, trust me. That is what our dorm counselor went through, and I will not stand by and let it happen again, even to one of my most despised of enemies. The scatterbrain even forgets my name at times. He calls me Barry at times. So Lord Van Zieks really did have a friend once, but I didn't notice hell freezing over. I swear, that's one thing I like about Ryunosuke. Basically, he takes Phoenix's sarcastic nature and he ramps it up to 11. Just Ryunosuke is done half the time. Okay, let's see.
Hold it!
You seem to be pleased by that.
Yes, another example of my hypothesis holding true. But I sense some sarcasm, Mr. Naruto. Are you not pleased?
No!
I knew it. At the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for Mr. Assman losing his life. The advancement of science is no excuse. I know that.
No, you're quite right. Tell the court, did you have a close relationship with Mr. Assman?
Oh, well, no, not really. I mean, I'd only met him 2 or 3 times. And we only ever discussed my hypothesis in the project, and the research grant, of course.
Hold it!
How did you come to know Mr. Assman in the first place? Well, he saw my criminal record when I had accidentally killed that one professor of linguistics with my mini railgun, and then there was this time. I had built a mechanical dog for the military. Really good creature, spring-loaded legs, bear trap maw. It was a destructive creature that would rain death and havoc upon our enemies. Only when I demonstrated it to the board and one of the donors of the school, it jumped off stage, went mad, jumped off stage, and bit off the leg of the 3rd Duke of Wellington. A year ago now, a small provincial science journal published a little paper about my work. It said that it was morally unethical and a crime against humanity.
That's a scientific journal? Good gracious, I should need new spectacles.
And then basically Iris, she shakes her head. You called that a journal? You called that a publication? And then Iris whips out an issue of Rand's magazine. This is a publication. I might have had an extraordinary hypothesis and great promise by the time I had no money. I had the tiny little meals at a tiny little cafe and drink watered down water out of a tiny little glass. But Mr. Assman read the paper and came to visit me at my tiny little laboratory.
And offered you money to help fund your work.
Exactly! That's exactly what happened. I handled the theoretical side of things, and Mr. Assman provided me with an engineer for the practical. And the 3 of us produced that fantastic machine together. The machine that you brought to the Gray exhibition to demonstrate. We had to apply to the government for some sort of inspection to be allowed to exhibit, I think. I didn't understand all that side of things. Mr. Assman took care of all of it. He was a wonderful man, really. I owe him everything.
Hold it!
When you say that you built the machine together, does this mean that you were involved in its construction? Yes! Well, not exactly. I'm not good with the practical side of the machines myself, so the physical construction was done by an engineer, using my family of tools.
Little remains of your creation now, though. Following the explosion, repair will no doubt be impossible.
Yes, I realize that, but still. If someone were to gather all the broken parts, they could discover the secret of my hypothesis. But Mr. Assman and I toiled over that machine for so long, we pour our hearts and souls into it. I have to protect our work. I have to protect my death ray. So what's left of the machine must be kept safe. That's only fair, because what happened was an accident. That's the extent of the testimony then. Thank goodness for that. I don't want him doing any more damage. He's already basically proven that he could have been the culprit.
But it seems as though all he really cares about is defending his hypothesis. Still, I wonder, what if his hypothesis is just fundamentally flawed? And it is! Because, go with this one. Thank goodness Albert is such a memorable character, because we have this photograph. As you can see, metal glasses.
Objection.
Professor Hairbrain, you say that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis using the machine you made. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Spot on. Exactly correct. In that case, I'd ask you to have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like you to pay attention to the victim's face. You can clearly see that Mr. Assman is wearing a pair of spectacles with a metal rim. What? Metal? No! Metal can't! That's not... metal? No! We've already established that the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found on the stage. However, if your hypothesis correctly predicted that outcome, it should also predicted that the metal rim spectacles would be found in the same place. My hypothesis! My hypothesis! Okay, that's it. You're going outside. You're touching the grass now. Agreed. Inspector Gregson, take him outside to touch the grass. No! Professor Hairbrain, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed. Order! 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 Counsel, what's the implication of this? If, on the day in question, the alleged instantaneous kinesis never actually took place, then it's entirely possible that the victim was killed somewhere other than on the stage. And in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit. But my hypothesis is sound! I proved it that day. The experiment was a success. The experiment was proof of all my work. If I could say something here, in my capacity as a fellow of the Royal Society... Yes, juror number 4, go ahead. As a man of science, there's only one thing I simply cannot abide. And that's a fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science. What? Wait! Great Scott! Are you suggesting my science is suspect? Because I will kick your ass! Hairbrain then jumps over the witness stand. He rushes up to juror number 4 and just punches him straight in the face. It's just been disproved, hasn't it? In front of all of us. In other words, the whole demonstration was a complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you that this man is a heel, a bounder, and a fraud. I say the wreckage of that machine shall be stripped down and thoroughly examined. No! Never! That machine is the essence of my entire hypothesis. It's protected by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. What the devil is that brass all at the bad eye? It's like a death rule! Wow, after we're pants! I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor? Not even my game can decide. Okay, I am really curious. I know that's raised objection, but I want to wait and see. Maybe I should watch and wait for the time being. My feeling is the machine requires a thorough examination. But what about this special dispensation that's I mentioned? Oh gosh, this is all too much. It's determined that the machine safe was the murder weapon. I think you'll find the act won't apply. Of course it's the murder weapon. I will consider that blind as day. And why can't we get back to the other matters? Like why I've got to wear pants? Why do I gotta wear pants? I want to be free, like the bird! So we're on agreement, are we? That the machine should be stripped? If I don't do something, they'll...
Objection.
Professor Hairbrain has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes? But even so... Even so what? Going to such trouble and expense to create a fake machine to display in public. He would have had absolutely no reason to do such a thing.
Objection.
He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. For the research grant money. Ah!
government was foolish enough to have deemed the man's ridiculous notion plausible, he and his conspirators would have had received a handsome sum indeed.
Conspirators? What would be the value of such a grant? 10 pounds?
You're an order of magnitude off, out, madam. 500 pounds a year.
Ooh, you had to live on a handsome on that much for years.
The society noticed an increase in bogus public demonstrations in the field of science recently. And plenty of scientists arguing with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. People all agree it is plenty motive enough for murder, I assure you.
No! I haven't deceived anyone, least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound, the science is sound. Please, you must believe me.
Objection!
No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower. Which means that the experiment was a success.
I'm a rock.
And therefore, the only person who could possibly have committed this murder is the accused! Damn it, Albert, I am not going to let you get away with this again! This is what happened. For you got away with inadvertently killing our professor of linguistics with your mini railgun, your mechanical dog monstrosity bit off the leg of the 3rd Duke of Wellington, and now this. Darn it, Albert, I am not going to let you get away with it.
But the guy's leg was reattached.
It doesn't matter, Albert. That guy's leg was torn off by your mechanical dog beast.
Barack. Where is this heading? I have no idea.
My lord, if I may. Yes, Lord Van Zieks? The prosecution would like to summon new witnesses to the stand. New witnesses? What would be the nature of their involvement? They were spectators of the demonstration at the exhibition, who were occupying special seats.
Eyewitnesses?
Very well, the court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear from eyewitnesses to the incident. The prosecution's stance is clear. The experiment was no Pulsheist. The accused killed the financier victim there on the public stage, before the eyes of the spectators. Now, my learned friend.
Oh, yes?
It's time for you to make your own stance clear.
There's clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. But where does that leave me?
We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution will prepare its new witnesses to take the stand. As you wish, my lord. Good. In that case, course adjourned for 20 minutes.
To be continued. No, we are not saving the game's progress. We are moving out with the progress. 23rd of October, 10:44 a.m. The Old Bailey, Defendants Antechamber. Mr. Naruto, what on earth were you playing at just now? Or rather, what on earth were you playing at all along? My hypothesis, my amazing hypothesis, you've been picking holes in it from the start. Ah, sorry about that. When you promised me, you said you'd prove that drag explosion was an accident, not murder. You said you'd keep my purchase adventure from falling into anyone else's hands. But all you've done so far is try to undermine me, and for that, I place a curse upon your family line, that one day, one of my descendants will become one of your descendants' best friends, and he will ruin, and that descendant will make your descendant's life a living hell. Yes, I did make you a promise, you're right. I said that I believe in you and fight for your freedom to the very end. I also told you I was no scientist. I don't understand your hypothesis. The fact is, there's an undeniable flaw in your logic, isn't there? But if I just run through some equations, yes, you'll see, it's because my work is incomplete. Perhaps it is. Nevertheless, a man dies a consequence, didn't he? Oh! Oh, no! You're right. You're so right. It's all my fault. And I have no right to blame you for my failures. I'm a disaster, not just as a scientist, but as a human being! Well, that might be a little over the top. And while we're on the subject, what about Barack? He's being awful! Claiming his old university friend to be a murderer, you mean? He's a disaster, not just as a prosecutor, but as a human being! Oh, but no, wait, he's the Reaper, isn't he? Perhaps he's not classified as Homo sapiens anymore. Glad that's cleared up. Can I double check something with you? Yes, what? The machine and demonstration you prepared. They were based entirely on your hypothesis, I presume. There was no trickery involved. I drew the plans of the machine with my very own hands. Every line was painstakingly drawn with the firm belief that science is the only future. Oh yes, it's true that my hypothesis hasn't reached maturity yet, but please, Mr. Naruto, you must believe in it! Alright, Professor, I understand.
Counsel, defendants!
The prosecution's witnesses are ready to take the stand. Court is about to be in session again.
Make your way to the courtroom, please,
Which we'll do in the next episode. Anyways, I really appreciate that you stuck around to watch this episode. You're a great viewer, and I hope you come back for the next one. If you like this video, like, subscribe, comment, share, do whatever you want. With that, I'll see you next time. Bye.